Is he someone that you think United are interested in, or is it just that he sort of ticks the Premier League box and not many do?
I think he's someone that they are considering. Yeah, I mean, personally, I like Watkins. I know 29, you're sort of thinking, how many years would he have left? But, that hasn't stopped United doing that kind of business before. I'm not equating him to Robin van Persie, but clearly he came in and made an immediate impact for United. And I think that's what Amorim needs, really. And even if it doesn't end up being Watkins for 5 years, it's still an important period now to get it right.
Hello and welcome to Stretford, Paddock. My name is Joe and this is Inside United, of course, with Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic. Laurie, how are you?
I'm fantastic, guys. How are you?
Very good to have you. Jay Motti, of course, is here as always. How are you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm good. Good to see you again, Laurie. Yeah. Not just from The Athletic, of course, also from Talk of the Devils.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, which is now available on YouTube, I believe.
You're so kind when you mention this, because we are now rivals.
No, we're not rivals. We're collaborators.
We're compadres.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we are here in Chicago, Illinois, on the Manchester United States tour. We are here following the Premier League
Summer Series.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
But we've got loads to talk about. We're going to be talking about transfers. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we've seen so far out here. You were at the training sessions and some of the press conferences as well. We want to hear what you saw there. We want to talk a little bit about what Manchester United have shown so far and what we still think that not just we think they need, but what the club think they need. Because there's still transfers. There's still a team there that I think hasn't been finished yet. So we'll get into all of that. But let's start a little bit with being out here then, because obviously we're in Chicago. You were in Chicago, then you flew to New Jersey for the game, and now we're back in Chicago.
Yes.
Talk to me about what you've seen so far. You've been at the open training sessions. You've been around Amorim. What sort of feeling do you get of the squad, of the mood of the team and the players and the Wilcoxes, etc.?
Certainly one of satisfaction and happiness, I think, because they've got the two major signings that they wanted in ahead of the tour happening. Now, obviously, the Bryan Mbeumo situation is a little bit complicated because he didn't play against West Ham. He's not going to play against Bournemouth either, and maybe it's a little bit touch and go for Everton even. So you're sort of thinking, well, why was he out here? Obviously, to get up to speed, because he didn't train with Brentford as part of that transfer away, which we'll get into more of as we go on. But he that's an interesting aspect. But the fact that he's even here, I think, is a positive thing. That's what Ruben Amorim wanted. He wanted Mateus Cunha as well. You can see that he has got a lot of personality, Cunha, and we've already heard from Ruben Amorim and Bruno Fernandes saying that he speaks to a lot of players. I think he speaks several languages, so he can communicate with them. At open training that we saw, it was only 15 minutes. Obviously, it's not anything detailed that we're witnessing, but you can see him interacting with Bruno and with Luke Shaw, kind of putting on little sort of GPS device on each other, and he's kind of like right in the mix, it seems like, straight away. So that's interesting to observe. And it ended the press conference afterwards as well, where he sort of spoke about it being a privilege to play for Manchester United, not a pressure, and how that the idea of United trying to get back to the top again is a challenge that he wants to embrace. So I think it feels like quite a good mood, really. We've seen Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada over here and other executives as well. So it's I think the fact that they've got these two signings in was crucial. I think if one of them was lingering on, I think the mood might have been a little bit different.
What do you make of Amorim and the mood around training and this summer series? And obviously we all saw the first game. How seriously do you think he's taking this? Do you think he is? Because I know it's a friendly and it's pre-season. I'm not pretending that we're in the summer series, that's a trophy or anything like that. But do you think he's maybe taking it a little bit more serious than you would in past campaigns or other managers have taken pre-season? Because not just the pressure, but the fact that this is good level opposition. It's Premier League opposition, and you've got these new signings, albeit only Cunha's playing at the minute. Do you think that maybe this is there is a bit more of a serious approach than some of the other pre-seasons we've all seen?
Yeah, well, it's his first one, right?
Yeah.
And obviously he originally wanted to come at this point, and he was convinced otherwise, and he now says that actually that was a good thing to get through that process, make mistakes and understand his players better. Clearly there's a group of players that aren't here, so he's decided to cut them loose, albeit the club will say that they wanted to move, so they've done that, because if you want to move, then let's not have you around the first team squad. But I think that it does. The level of competition is interesting as well, because you've got three teams there that actually finished above United in the Premier League last season. You sort of think Everton, Bournemouth, and West Ham.
Yeah, looking down our noses at him, and then you realise, actually.
We dream of
one
like
day
Everton's did. when they had to get in one of our worst ever managers to take them above us in the league. What a great day that was. David Moyes flying past Man United with Everton. Brilliant.
So an upset victory in the opening game,
What an upset.
Manchester United beating West Ham United 2-1. But I just feel like I think the seriousness that he's taking it with is because he knows that this is a really important start to the season for him. You know, that sequence of 8 games that kicks off the Premier League is very difficult. He knows that if he continues as the way he did for the whole 6 months really of his time in the Premier League, that his job will be under scrutiny hugely. And so this is the time now to get your players sharp and fit. And I think they looked pretty good, certainly in the opening half against West Ham. You know, they kind of had physicality, they had that sort of determination, aggression in their play. So that's what he wants, I think, to instill, so that it then becomes a rhythmatic thing. Is that a word? Into the start of the season. Let's coin it.
Yeah.
It kind of becomes just part of their process where they're at that level. Stop smiling at me now.
I mean, to put you off when you're mid-flow there. Sorry.
I know. Listen, we had slunch just before we started filming this, didn't we? And we wondered whether that was a word. So I think we're in the mode of let's get some creativity here. Let us know in the comments what you think slunch was referring to.
Yeah, we've had slunch and now we've had
One of us
rhythmatic.
said slunch. You have to tell us why we said it and what the hell it means.
Clear that up for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to finish the point, I think that's why, and it's the starting lineup against West Ham. You know, you could see how that could be pretty much the team against Arsenal. Maybe Bayindir, if Onana is fit, he's hoping to be fit for that Arsenal game. Maybe that's a change that happens. Luke Shaw, Aidan Heaven, maybe that's one as left centre back. But you could sort of see how that's a solid outfit, and he kept them on for 65 minutes. So it wasn't like he made a load of changes at half time or throughout the game. It was kind of like, that's the players that I want to get at peak fitness. Not to say the other ones he doesn't, but it feels that he's certainly got an idea in his head as to what he wants. Even though after the game he said, I've made no decisions, about my starting lineup for Arsenal.
No.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll see maybe in the next game whether he gives the other lot 60 minutes. Because if he gives roughly that team the same again, he's clearly prioritising their sort of match fitness, isn't he? So we'll take it from there, I guess. There's a few players I want to talk to you about. Some that we saw play from the start, some that we saw come on. Mason Mount is he's in a bit of an interesting position, isn't he? Because obviously he's not been able to come in and assert himself the way he would have wanted, the way any of us would have wanted. It's not, particularly harsh to say that. He's had so many injuries. He looks though like as soon as Amorim came in, we've seen footage of them hugging, of them talking about how much they love each other, about how there's this kind of instant and obvious position for him in the team, which a lot of United's attackers, as soon as Amorim came in, was sort of going, where do I fit here? That wasn't the case with Mount. He was one of the few that had an obvious and an easy position. And yet, it's the only position that we've signed players in. We've signed 2 players in Mason Mount's position. Where does he sort of sit with all this? What's going on with him?
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to get some time with him at the team hotel, the Waldorf Astoria, a very nice hotel, very plush.
Named after a type of salad.
Yes, that is exactly the case. So the Mason Mount, sorry, totally thrown me. No, absolutely. It was interesting because that was one of the questions I asked him. You've obviously. That number 10 role is the one that you won the Champions League with Chelsea in that exact kind of formation really. So, and he responded, the fact that Cunha and Mbeumo have both come in that position, and he I don't know, he struck a confident tone with his answer. I know that players aren't going to say, yeah, actually, right, yeah, I'm thinking I might have struggled for minutes at it, but the way he said it, the kind of explanation that he gave as to why he felt that way was, I think, quite compelling because I think, and this is to your point about Ruben Amorim really liking him, I think he understands the game very well tactically. He also does what the coach wants, really. And that is something that obviously Ruben Amorim has struggled with, for some of the players that he's decided to let loose, I suppose. And then I think that, so he feels fit and healthy. So there's that on his side that he hasn't had for 2 years, really. I know he's been, at the end of last season, he was kind of on a good level of fitness, but there's been moments, hasn't there, where we've not seen him for a long time. So, I think that it's going to be interesting though, right? Because you've got these 2 guys that clearly have to play. They've spent a lot of money to sign them. So it'd be fascinating. And there's only 1 game a week, obviously, with the Premier League. So, he's going to have to fight for his place. But he struck a confident tone anyway, at least with us.
It's good to hear because you'd worry that he could get deflated and that he might think with 2 players coming in, because it's been such a weird signing on it in terms of what's happened with Mason Mount. He's had so many injuries, and we've always spoke about it on the channel. Like last season, every time he came on, he just seemed to get booked. It was just like he'd come on for a cameo, get booked, and that'd be it. I know he did quite well. I think was it against Athletic Club where he got a couple of goals, but he has sort of struggled. And then you look, you think, okay, is replaced from the team, but almost every manager that's had Mason Mount seems to like him. Whether that's Gareth Southgate for England, whether it was obviously Ten Hag brought him in, didn't really have much get much chance of him. But you say there about the confidence and how he came across. Do you think that is well placed? Do you think there is going to be a place from this team? Because I don't know. Even with like, I know Ahmad's played wing back. Even Ahmad seems like an option at number 10 as well. It doesn't seem like it's, it's going to be difficult.
Well, even Bruno Fernandes was the number 10.
Yeah, I forgot about Bruno playing there.
Kobe Mainoo in the pre-match press conference, Ruben Amorim saying he does his best work on the ball in high positions, really. And I think he did well, from that number 6 role, anticipating to get the interception for Bruno's second goal. But so you've got a lot of players there. You're absolutely right. I don't think, if Mbeumo and Cunha are fit, they're the 2 starting 10s, aren't they? So I don't think he gets in that position. I think I did ask him about his position. I don't know if he gave quite a clear answer on it in terms of whether he could play deeper, but he didn't seem like that was something that he was particularly thinking about. So it's more, like I say, that number 10 role, getting on the ball, creating chances, scoring goals, hopefully. To those 2 goals that you mentioned against Athletic Club, quality, right? I know I'm the Mason Mount, fan club, number 1 member, but so he does have that ability, and he kind of senses, I think, where to move in the right way. And he was speaking actually about how he's giving that kind of instruction to the younger teammates. He was mentioning Bendito in the first game against Leeds, in terms of giving him little tips on how to find pockets of space. So I think that's why coaches do really like him, because he's got that ability to communicate with his teammates as well as do what they're asking. You mentioned Thomas Tuchel, loves him as well. Yeah. It seems like Frank Lampard, I think, when he had him on loan at Derby.
Everyone seems to like him.
Yeah, he does. He's a popular player with managers, isn't he?
Maybe part of it is like you said, that kind of tone and the confidence and the sort of immediate, like, he comes across well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And if you're a coach, you can probably at least get the impression that he knows what you're talking about and he's going to do the right things for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I asked about the yellow cards as well.
Yeah, it's a running joke. Like me and Ronnie are always going on about it. Like Mason Mount, he loves a booking when he comes on.
He sort of smiled a bit. He said, "Yeah, I got too many bookings at the end of last season." Yeah. I think it was 3 in 7 games at one point. So obviously, and then there wasn't any for like 5 after that. So in the end, it didn't look so bad really. But there was that period where I think he was even doing fouls and things like that.
He just come on, and it's just like he was letting everyone know he was there. He just come on and do like almost a sort of semi-meaningless foul in the middle of the pitch. You're like, why have you done that? And he'd get a yellow, and he'd almost look like he was
happy about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He said to us that basically he would be watching the game from the substitutes bench, and obviously he went through that period where he was sort of fit, but he wasn't starting him, and so he was kind of itching to do stuff when he got on the pitch, and that sometimes he thinks that even just making a foul is a good thing to get you in the game. He said it can do something psychologically to you, so that, right, I'm in the game now. Yeah. And okay, sometimes that then was a booking, but he said it's always been in his game as well. It's not something that particularly is, of the current moment because of the situation he was in. But yeah, he did accept that he perhaps needed to just curb it a little bit.
It's a good point about you make yourself a part of the game, don't you? Even without your teammates having to pass to you, or if you do, it's probably the most peripheral way you can do that. But the game isn't just passing you by, and you're not just jogging about. You're involved at least. It's something.
And I think a couple of those moments were actually like counter-attacks that he was stopping. So it was like almost like a tactical foul. You're doing something.
That kind of thing decent. Yeah, it was just weird because even though he's had that in his game, he's not someone you'd associate with it. No. And it was just that spell. Yeah. And it came off the back of a time when a lot of people were questioning him when he came on and was a bit quiet. And it's like Mason Mount cameo, he didn't really do much. And then all of a sudden, it's Mason Mount comes on and smashes someone, and you're like, really? But it does make sense, to be honest with you. And I do buy into that idea of him following instructions and stuff like that as well, because obviously managers love that, don't they?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Rashford in a minute, but before that, let's stick with the sort of the theme of the players from the game of the day. Rasmus Hojlund, slightly, well, he's another one that's in a bit of a mad position, but different from Mount in that he plays every week. And yet he still almost feels like he's not our first choice striker. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I know that obviously the public opinion on him varies widely, but obviously has dropped a lot in the last season. Poor form, United's terrible form, and he wasn't much to shout about last year at all. But he started the game against West Ham, had a couple of moments early on in particular where that first run shot they had that hit the post, I thought, oh, that looked more like Hojlund that we want him to be. It wasn't a great game from him, but there were some signs maybe that, he's got a bit more of that enthusiasm back, a bit more of that sharpness going again. What's your understanding of Amorim's position on him and also his position in the team? Because I know that you and others at The Athletic have mentioned a couple of times the idea that United are quite willing to sell him. I think David Ornstein said, he wouldn't be surprised if he was sold, or the United were even maybe keen to sell him. I don't know if that was maybe stepping it a little bit too far. What's going on with Hojlund?
Yeah, fascinating situation, really, isn't that? Because, United spent so much money on him and it's only 2 years down the line. And this was the period where you'd hope it would be, right, he's going to kick on now and really make that number 9 role his own. It was funny to see him, do that run. I think it was Kilman that he sort of beasted for speed. Like, it was a really nice turn of acceleration, which weirdly kind of seemed to not be in his game a little bit at times last season, even though he'd scored that fantastic goal against Galatasaray the season before where he just absolutely blitzed them. So it was that kind of speed that he was showing in the same spot that he scored that goal against Arsenal, in the same stadium 2 years ago when Aidan Heaven was the defender that he was up against. So you're sort of thinking, okay, he's come back with a bit of a bang, something to improve, a point to prove. But I think overall in the game he did all right. And actually, Ruben Amorim after the game said, "I really like what Rasmus was doing in the game. It was good from him." So, and I think that was genuine. It wasn't just a kind of statement to appease a player. I think he would be honest in that circumstance. But yeah, where does it leave him overall? I think the situation is open with him personally. I think there's clubs that are looking at it thinking, as the window goes on, do we make a move for him? I think I've been on here before, haven't I, where I've said it was, likelier.
Yeah, I think at
leave.
one point you said it looked like, at the time, it looked more likely that he was going to go than stay.
Yeah.
Does that still feel the way it's shaping up? Because I think at the time, to be fair, there was still interest, I think, from Inter, which has since cooled. And also, there was a lot of rumours about United. We hadn't signed on Mbeumo yet. There was still this, are we going to get a striker in? So do you think that's changed slightly now, or would you stay on?
Changed slightly. Yeah, just because Inter were definitely keen on him, but they signed Bonny from Parma. So, that kind of, I think, has now ended that interest. But there's other clubs out there. So, I mean, do Borussia Dortmund, for example, make a move at some point? You kind of feel like Bundesliga might suit him if he was to depart. Leipzig was another one that was mentioned to me, and obviously they've got Benjamin Sesko, and you're sort of thinking, okay, is that some kind of workable solution there where each club gets a new striker? But they're kind of a little bit hypothetical at the moment. I'm not aware of any talks that are ongoing on that front. I just get the sense when you speak to people that the Hojlund position isn't necessarily set in stone. So yeah, kind of still one to watch a little bit.
It was interesting watching him, Hojlund, because I'm always fascinated how he is with his teammates.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it in the past, haven't we, where we struggled with certain... Garnacho was the obvious one. And I know players argue when you're not passing the ball, whatever, but it seemed like them two at times. You've seen Hojlund absolutely levering the post. Like he's, lost the plot because Garnacho, for probably like the 5th time in the game, has just ignored him and had a shot or whatever that's led to nothing. But I noticed like there was a couple of times when the through ball from like Cunha was overhit and he was like giving him an applause, like thank you kind of thing. I know it's very early, but he does seem to, at least from this sort of pre-season, be having a better relationship with his teammates, if that makes sense. Just from what I was watching, so I was just curious to see how it looked like he was getting on, because me and we've all spoke about it before, like how we want him to succeed. And I do feel a little bit sorry for him. Some of the stick he's getting is a little bit OTT. I understand there's questions about his ability, but it was good to see, like, it at least seems to be getting on a little better. There's a little bit more of an understanding there.
Yeah, I mean, the Cunha one, I thought it was a really essential performance, to just show, okay, this is why United have signed him. And I know it's a friendly, so you don't want to read too much into it, but it was nice how he was linking with Bruno Fernandes, and then he sort of obviously can get the ball dribbled with it, and he was doing that in deep and in the final third, and he was also putting those passes in. He's some nice pass to Dorgu, and then a really nice moment to set up Hojlund, who had that chance, and he kind of skies it. So that would have been a positive outcome, I think, if he had a Cunha assist and then a Hojlund goal. That would have been
ideal, wouldn't it? Just for the sort of the vibes.
Yeah, the good vibes. He had a bit of a thing with Dalot, didn't he, in the Leeds game, where he sort of made a run out to the box and he hadn't passed it, and Dalot hadn't passed it, and they kind of had a bit of a sort of argument maybe. But I don't know, Hojlund's run in that situation didn't feel like it was going towards goal, so you're sort of understanding Dalot's position. But anyway, maybe it's a minor point, but you just hope that kind of understanding can develop, pre-season, and then if he does stay at the games at the start of the season, because the fact that they've got one game a week does mean that they can drill these moments more and more and more on the training pitches, because that's surely what it requires. When the pressure's a little bit off and you can kind of be a bit more creative with it, hopefully that allows for understandings to develop and flourish.
Yeah, because I was saying I don't think Cunha's the sort of guy that would take too well for you shouting at. I was just thinking, I thought if he starts raging at Cunha, we might have an issue here, because he's got a bit of an edge to him, hasn't he?
He has. I just think straight away, though, like you said, you mentioned it, and then you're talking about Cunha and the relationships that people have got with Hojlund. The fact that there was a few overhit through balls, wasn't there? But the fact that there was a few through balls, it was noticeably different to last season. Like you mentioned Garnacho, I think we all got a bit frustrated with Garnacho at times on the pitch. It just looks like he's thinking, how can this attack make me look good, rather than what's the most likely thing to get Man United a goal. I think too often giving it to Hojlund, what's the point? Because no one likes him anyway. He's probably going to miss or whatever. And if I don't, I can shoot. I didn't get that feeling watching him against West Ham. It felt like, regardless of whether it's Hojlund and what he's had, the season he's had, we're going to just do the right things over and over again. And hopefully, whoever plays there, like I said, whether it's him, whether it's a new person, whether it's Xerxes or Bruno in a false nine and Mbeumo, they're going to get the best out of that player by just doing the right things over and over again. A player that obviously has played around there for United recently, Marcus Rashford. That deal to Barcelona is done. He's even made his debut for him in a friendly. What's the sort of your understanding of that deal? Because there was some question marks about the fee, about the option, about what Barcelona have sort of done to get this deal done. Then also in the last sort of 24, 40 hours, we've seen Luis Diaz go to Bayern Munich. I know these deals couldn't be more separate, but it pisses me off when I see Luis Diaz, who I know has had better recent seasons than Marcus Rashford, but is not a better player for me than Marcus Rashford is, go to Bayern Munich for more than double what Rashford might go to Barca for if he has a good season and they want him. I just think, like, and he's younger, he's a better player when he's playing, and yet they might get him for half the price. What do you make of the Barca deal in the context of other deals we've seen this summer? Do you think United have got a good deal and it's good to get him off the books, or actually have we maybe got rid of it quick there?
It's a really fascinating comparison there to make, actually, because obviously Luis Diaz was a factor in the Barcelona pursuit as well. Yeah. They looked at him. I think they wanted him, really. I think it was kind of Nico Williams, Luis Diaz, but the finance of the Diaz one they couldn't afford. Nico Williams obviously chose to stay at Athletic Club, and so Rashford was then the option for them that they could press the button on. And yeah, from a United point of view, they don't sell well, but that is difficult when they're not performing well. So obviously United finished 15th in the Premier League last season. Liverpool won the league. So and Luis Diaz was a pretty kind of, not major part maybe, but certainly remember the start of the season, he was on fire for them. He scored lots of goals. So you've got that status that you're going to buy, or somebody that's been outcast really from United for a good 6 months, and then he does the Aston Villa loan, shows a bit of sparkle against PSG and other moments maybe. So, but it's not the same level as what Luis Diaz was doing. So it's a fickle business, the transfer market, because values can go up and down quite sharply. But clearly, clubs looking at United's position know that these players that aren't in the first team picture, United have to shift. So the value just reduces automatically. And now it's interesting that Villa's loan, buy option in their loan was £40 million, and now it's obviously €30 million, something like 25 million quid. So it's a 15 million hit in just that short
just
period.
Nothing either, is it? 25 million quid.
Yeah,
that's like the idea you could even get a striker as a backup attacker who can play anywhere across the front line, who might be good enough to play for Barcelona, and they might be able to get him for 25 million quid. That's absurd.
I know we talk about it a lot, and he is absurd, and I do rate Marcus Rashford, but it's the question marks there, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are. We can't pretend they're not.
Yeah.
Like we've all spoken about it. Yes, there's the wages issue as well, but I know we keep going on about it, but it's true. The thing about him and Amorim phone out, not training properly, going out before games. What happened in Belfast under Tanaka? Even the little things that you might at the time think weren't the end of the world. Now you look back and you think, when he was dropped for the Wolves game because he was late for things, you think, at the time, but then it's this pattern. And I think that's the issue you got with Marcus Rashford, not his ability. I agree. I think he's definitely better than Luis Diaz. But Luis Diaz is an unproblematic player who'll play every week, and he's a pretty effective player. Marcus Rashford is someone who, when he turns up, like you mentioned there, Laurie, PSG, that second half in the quarterfinal, second leg, I think it was, in the Champions League, for that 20, 30 minutes was phenomenal. But there's the games week in, week out where maybe he's not reaching those levels. So, yeah, Marcus Rashford, I think it was last night or the night before when he played at Barca, he came on, didn't he? I think he had half an hour, but I saw a few clips of him and Flick chatting to each other when he came off, and Flick seems I know it's early days, he seems to have a good relationship. Looks like he's determined to try and get a tune out of him. Obviously, he's brought him in. I think that could work, and Flick obviously wanted him.
I think Liga, you saw with Anthony, it feels like a kind of league that you can go and do good numbers at if you got that intensity from the Premier League, and it's a slower league, right? It's a more technical league, so I think Rashford could well do okay there. He'll have to get into the team first. You've got Rafinha there, got Lewandowski up top and Lamine Yamal. Like, it's a pretty fearsome front three. But he's obviously accepted that challenge because it's the glamour of Barcelona that you're playing for, rather than getting excited for, I don't know, a kind of mid-ranking Premier League team that might have been an alternative potentially. I mean, even the Aston Villa loan, we're told that was something that was proposed to him as a kind of plan to get him to Barcelona because they couldn't afford him in January with all the regulations that they've got. So he wasn't necessarily sold on it until it kind of it was presented to him as an outcome, as a route to Barcelona, and he went there and seized it, and then Barcelona have kind of gone ahead with it. From a United point of view, obviously they get the wages off the salary book, and it's a full coverage. He's taking a bit of a pay cut actually as well to sort of get this through. It depends, I think, a little bit on performances in terms of how much of a pay cut it is. But United, from their point of view, get sort of saving of sort of 14-15 million pounds. So it's a lot of money really when you can then reinvest that in players that you are going to pick every week. But yeah, back to sort of Joe's original point of the transfer fee. It does feel like that's just something that you're kind of taking as a bonus now at this stage. It's more saving the wages, which is kind of a crazy situation to get into when 2 years ago he was banging in 30 goals in a campaign. So yeah, I think everyone hopes that he does really well, because ultimately then he's happy. United will maybe get some return for this player, and Barcelona get an addition to their squad as well. But yeah, let's see. I mean, I was actually told as well that if it wasn't going to be Barcelona, he was going to basically want to stay at Man United. So that's how kind of serious he wanted the Barcelona move. So that would have led to some awkward conversations and maybe a difficult situation to manage. But that was what his focus was anyway from the get-go.
I'm going to do the maths on that then. What I'm going to say is, if he didn't go to Barca, then we would have been paying that 15 million a year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add it on to the potential fee at the end. So instead of being 25 million, it is 40 million again.
I think that's a way to look at it, because Barcelona are basically paying 15 million to have this player for a year, aren't they?
Yeah. And we then don't have to pay it ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we've not Barcelona,
is he happier now?
Way, Laurie, I feel a bit better now.
Good.
I feel a lot better.
That's what we're here for, group therapy session.
Thanks very much. And on that note, I want to make the group even bigger by buying some players.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about some transfers. We talked about, obviously, Hojlund before. I know that Rashford is a transfer, but it's the ins that we really want to hear about. Hojlund and that number 9 area is obviously an area of concern for fans, for the club, for Amorim, for everyone. There's been names mentioned, obviously, but it's a sort of an ever-decreasing list as, Osimhen makes his transfer, as Gyökeres makes his transfer. It's sort of Newcastle now look like they're up for signing someone because Isak's put in a transfer request there, or, maybe not officially put in a transfer request, but has expressed his intention to leave. Benjamin Sesko is maybe on their list. Let's start with Benjamin Sesko, because he seems to be the one that is the kind of the meat that the most vultures are trying to peck at the moment. Are we one of those vultures? And if so, I don't know, I'm going away, I'm sort of down a cul-de-sac.
You can do that.
If so, are we
finish
kicking away the other vultures so we can have him all for ourselves?
Do vultures kick?
I know.
No, we're kicking the vultures.
No, but we are also.
We are one of the vultures.
I messed up, Laurie.
So no, I like it.
You didn't.
Listen, you got to try these things. You never know until you start speaking.
That's what flair is.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
You just go for it, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Yeah. What's happening with Sesko?
You're right.
Oh, there we go.
I'm just gonna have a minute while Laurie.
Very straightforward question.
I looked at Laurie then, like we were losing him. Like I could see him trying to keep going.
No, it's just obviously we've been travelling a lot, and fatigue is setting in. But energy in this answer. Trust me. Joe's Vultures has really inspired me to give a full and frank account of what is going on with Benjamin Sesko.
I'm sorry.
He is a player that United have tracked for years, since he was at Domzale when he was 16. There's actually a funny story in one of the previous Athletic pieces that I've done where the transfer fee that they were asking for was €2 million, and they got this from, I got to get the name right, RB Salzburg, and United were going 1 million. No, it's 2 million, 1.1. No, it's 2. And then basically they didn't end up signing him. He goes to the Red Bull Group. Then again, they looked at him in Ten Hag's first season, I think it was, first summer. But he, at that point, I'm told, didn't feel comfortable coming to United as a starting number 9 and kind of the pressure that would bring. Sort of thought his best move was then to go to Leipzig, obviously in the same group. And then he's since then, become a kind of figure that people are always thinking about. Could he join, a Premier League team? Arsenal were obviously looking at him earlier this summer. I think it was quite a complicated set of talks around that, financials, things like that. I think there's, big expectations maybe from him in terms of what, kind of salary he might want and other associated costs. So, so United now, though, he is an option still because you've got Victor Gyökeres has gone to Arsenal instead after the talks with Sesko ended. But I don't get a sense right now that he is someone that United are going to push for at this moment. I think they look at the cost of that deal and the fact that he didn't exactly tear it up in the Bundesliga last season. It was kind of similar numbers that he was doing to the previous season.
Was it 13 goals or
something like that? Yeah. So he's 22, so you think he's still young, and there's obviously scope there. It's just maybe for the kind of fee being requested, transfer and otherwise, that you'd be wanting more than that. So so I think
Hojlund got 10 for us in the league.
Well, that's what I mean.
Season 4 last.
Yeah, and he's been criticised massively. Yeah. And also, I think you look at what Ruben Amorim said in his press conference in Chicago before the game in New Jersey, and it was put to him about the Premier League experience of Mbeumo and Cunha, and he warmed to that. He kind of went along with that to say, we wanted players that could make an impact straight away. They're playing against these defenders that they already know, so you've kind of got that ready-made muscle memory almost in each game that you're not having to kind of coach into these new signings from the continent. So I wonder if that becomes a factor in the striker hunt as well.
What did you make of Ruben Amorim's sort of comments about a new striker and how happy he was with the squad? Because depending on what you want to believe, you could look at it. If you wanted to push a narrative of, you could tell he wants a new striker or he's happy with what he's got. I think you could argue the case for either, but you were actually there. What did you think about his comments? Did he give anything away?
He's been good, isn't he? He's happy. So he's got his 2, sort of big players in, and I think he's sort of in a mode of saying the right things in these aspects. He was put to him, wasn't it? If you don't sign a striker, are you happy with your squad? And he basically said, I would be, because I have players that want to be at this club. I again referring the players that are not currently over here in the USA. So obviously Rasmus Hojlund falls into that category, really wants to be at United. He said that publicly. But what does that mean really? Is he really absolutely satisfied? I think it leaves definite room for him wanting more. And I still think the kind of negotiations, or at least the conversations around what centre forward to potentially bring in are going on, aren't they? I think we've touched on others, haven't we? That kind of could be in the reckoning. Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa, we spoke about him, didn't we, on a previous episode of this podcast. He's got that Premier League experience that is crucial. It's just that Aston Villa are basically saying he's not for sale. Now, they kind of said the same thing in January when Arsenal were potentially invited to make a proposal. So, it's complicated, these kind of talks.
Inviting someone and tell him,
he's not for sale.
He's not for sale.
You know what I mean? Come and have a look around my house. Back to these metaphors again. But it's not for sale. Honestly, it's not. But just have a look at this lovely
Would you like this?
foundation.
Could you see yourself living here? Not that you ever will, but could you see yourself have a sleep? You know what? Sleep in that bed tonight. So not that you'll ever sleep in it again. So what do you think that's about? Because obviously on the surface that feels a bit like,
it's sort of teasing it, isn't it? I guess. I mean, I don't think there's been anything particularly major happening on the Ollie Watkins front. There's been, a check call to kind of maybe assess what that would look like. But I don't think that would then, Aston Villa saying he's not for sale doesn't mean that he's not for sale. I think even Liverpool kind of came out a little bit and said that about Luis Diaz, and obviously now they've just agreed a deal for him. So it just sets the parameters of your negotiation at the top end. He's not for sale. Well, okay, how about 40 million? No, he's really not for sale. Okay, how about 45? Well, maybe if you could come to 55. So it's sort of, I don't know.
Yeah. Then he'd stop being not for sale, which he is right now. But if you did that, then he would not be not for sale. But he is. Yeah. I just think it's so weird. And I think United never seem to do that. United are like, he's for sale, he's for sale. There's always like 10 articles at the start of every window. Everyone's for sale. The seats are for sale. The pitch is for sale. He's for sale. The manager's for sale. But actually, if you want him, he's going to... And that's why we get 8 million quid for everyone. I just like... I know Amorim kind of inferred, and you sort of referenced it, of like, we could go along with these guys, and Rashford could come back in the squad, and people could come back, and obviously not Rashford now, but like, all of these players could be here. So, make sure you give us a bit of money for them. But it's obviously all just like posturing. I don't know, I just think like, mate, I know negotiations do work like this, and I'm not a negotiator. So for me, I'm looking at it from the outside going, why are you pretending like that it's something it's not? Yeah. You're all in this business. You all know you're in this business. You're all like, why can't it be more straightforward and be like, Ollie Watkins, yes, he's for sale. We know he's 29. We want to go a different way. But it is 65 million, and we're not coming down on that. And rather than this, he's not for sale, but come look at him anyway. Come see him. What do you think? He's not yours. I just think, grow up. Do you know what I mean? Just be adults and like tell them what it's worth.
Is that not like,
it.
I get your point. I don't know, saving face and maybe trying to keep that relationship with the player going as well. Because if you say he is for sale and United can't get the dough together, then it's like, and if like last season, like if you hadn't have sort of kept up appearances with Ollie Watkins, which is what they kind of did, when Rashford got injured, you then get a player there that you've told the world that you don't want.
No, but I wouldn't tell the world.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you do that?
But behind the scenes, obviously, is different. In public, I would say all the managers, everyone just say, we like the squad, all that. I get all that. But behind the scenes, Liverpool have told someone at some point that Luis Diaz was for sale. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, teams got an inkling that he was, because no one's putting a bid in for Salah, but they were putting bids in for Diaz, and multiple clubs were. People, you know what I mean? Like
that's also a little bit. He clearly wanted to leave Liverpool, so Ollie Watkins hasn't done that with Villa.
Okay,
so if that was the case, maybe it would be a sort of different picture. But it's just a poker game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
Joe's just not over the Diaz thing, man. He's just.
I can't believe he's gone for. I think honestly,
Joe's looking at the numbers and he's fuming.
I think that's stupid from Bayern Munich. I had to go at Luis Diaz at the start of the season, and then he scored 2 goals against Man United, made me like an absolute knob. So I've had to double down, and then we got a bit more this season.
The personal element to this.
There is
a little bit.
And you know, Luis Diaz is going to go to Bayern Munich and smash it.
Yeah, all right, yeah,
and that's going to make him even angrier.
It will make me even angrier. But he's 29 in January. He's someone that gets you like on average.
I love how you've also now adding 6 months on. We're not even close to January, really.
He's
closer to 29 than he is to 28. Don't you know how fractions work?
Joe, he's 30 in January 2027.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
And also, it's only the 13th of January, so it's not even halfway.
Yeah. But when you look at like Ollie Watkins, everyone's like, oh, you can't get him. He's basically an old age pensioner, when really he's a year older than Diaz. Anyway, let's move on from that. So in terms of Watkins specifically then, obviously we have to overcome all the hurdles that we've just mentioned. Is he someone that you think United are interested in, or is it just that he sort of ticks the Premier League box and not many do?
I think he's someone that they are considering. I think they have various options though, in different strengths of, well, this person would fit in like this, or, they've got different ways of kind of looking at each option. And obviously then you've got other ones like, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is available for free, so they know that one, if they really want just to have a backup striker, maybe who's got that Premier League experience, that's there. There's other strikers that you could maybe throw into that, Randall Kolo Muani, I think is another name that, keeps getting brought up with United.
Your face says it all with that one.
I remember when Giancarlo Ramos was like, the guy that Erik ten Hag wanted, and he'd torn it up at the World Cup. So I don't know, he's still quite young. So, but there's various options, aren't there, that United might push the button on at different moments. But personally, I like Watkins. I know 29, you're sort of thinking, how many years would he have left? But that hasn't stopped United doing that kind of business before. I'm not equating him to Robin van Persie, but clearly he came in and made an immediate impact for United, and I think that's what Amorim needs really. And even if it doesn't end up being Watkins for 5 years, it's still an important period now to get it right. So yeah, let's see. It could well be that Rasmus Hojlund ends up staying and none of this actually transpires. But I just feel like there's certainly conversations that are going to take place as the weeks go on.
I don't want to throw a spanner in the works, but I just wanted to ask something quickly.
Yeah.
Because we saw Ugai and Mainu playing together yesterday. You asked Ugai about playing alongside Mainu. I know we focused on strikers and we keep talking about strikers. Obviously, brought in some sense, but I just wanted to quickly ask you about the midfield, just because. Do you get the impression that he's just going to try and make it work with what he's got, or are we still in for a midfielder?
I think they certainly started the summer with a midfielder in mind, or at least trying to get one at least. Obviously, the plans have kind of shifted, haven't they? Because Delap was there, they didn't get Delap, so then it's in Mbeumo. Does that then take away? It was more expensive than they were going to pay for Delap, so that's that take away from the midfield options. But I just feel like clearly, they've lost Christian Eriksen. Casemiro, he's got his final year contract, so it's clearly an area that they should address. Ugarte was pretty good against West Ham, wasn't he? And Amorim spoke interestingly after the game about him, saying that his confidence had taken a bit of a hit last season. He felt all the players had a bit of confidence hit, but he kind of made a point maybe with him. He said adjusting to a new league, new countries is something as well to consider, on and off the pitch. So yeah, let's see if he can kind of get into a groove with Ugarte, because that's really what he should be if he's at his best. He was pretty mobile in that game. I think the physicality was something that he struggled with maybe last season. Some of his passing range maybe could use some work, but that's the role that he's supposed to do. So Kobbie Mainoo alongside him, but it probably might be Bruno Fernandes usually, because he sort of said that that's where he might have to play with the two new tens coming in. But it's a fascinating one. But I do think that ultimately midfielder is something that United will look to do at some point in Amorim's reign.
It's weird who he got in it, because even though he was signed under Erik ten Hag, it wasn't like Erik ten Hag seemed to want him. He didn't really play him.
Today, didn't he?
Yeah, and so he's like an Ineos signing, and and he has played for Amorim before. But like you said, the confidence seems to take up. Amorim seems to get the ump with him after the West Ham game at the back end of last season. But you think in theory it should work with you guys in the side. So I just wondered. My thoughts on Kobbie Mainoo. I absolutely love him. So if we can't get a midfielder, maybe there's an option there. Sorry, I just wanted to get you on that, because it's sort of. Thought it was still worth chatting about.
It's interesting as well with the strikers. There's you rattled off sort of close to half a dozen names there that have been mentioned down the months and weeks, and
all of them.
We've got one. Well, Nicholas Jackson's been linked.
Jackson,
yeah, there you go.
Which just has there been any update on that at all?
I just think that's one that's there because Chelsea have signed two strikers. So how does he feel about all that? They, I think, would want a big fee still though for him.
Luis Diaz is 75 million. He's probably worth.
Luis Diaz gone for 75 million.
Yeah, honestly, he's probably worth double that. So,
and obviously conversations are open, aren't they, between United and Chelsea? You've got Alejandro Garnacho and kind of wanting Chelsea, I think. So these kind of conversations around then, okay, well, we've got this player, doesn't seem to naturally happen.
But then, sort of in contrast to all of that, there haven't really been any names linked in midfield. In terms of actual United want this player.
There was Edison at Atalanta, wasn't there? But I think he's too expensive.
Do you know what I mean? Though it's weird that it's an area that we want to improve. Goalkeeper, I can think of a couple names off the top of my head. Striker, loads. Midfield, not really. Is there any irons actually in the fire on that front as far as you're aware?
I don't know, to be honest. Okay. I just think it's been all sort of front end stuff because the goal scoring was so bad last season. But then getting the midfield right could also unlock more goals further up, couldn't it? So, but I'm not aware of anything that's particularly advanced, or to be honest, I'd be wrong to throw out some names at this point.
I'd much rather you do that than say stuff that you're not sort of well up on. So yeah, fair enough.
Thanks, Joe.
You wanted as well to talk about the Bryan Mbeumo deal, just to wrap up, because it did drag on a little bit, didn't it? We had the initial sort of, I think it was 3
episodes of this podcast.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was, mate. We spoke about Bryan Mbeumo every day for 6 weeks. It was amazing.
Saying it in your sleep.
Yeah, Bryan.
Big Bryan.
Yeah, because obviously it was clear he wanted to come to United. United wanted him. There was I think 3 successive bids or whatever it was. What's the sort of the ins and outs of all that? Because now we've finally got him. He is a Manchester United player. I know you've been looking at how that all came about. Was it as difficult as it seemed, to get that deal over the line.
It's kind of in the end, sort of more so. Ultimately there was some agitation there, on both sides. I think around how it was all handled, and then what it's ultimately come out as. A bit of a headline figure, I suppose, is the fact that the final, well, maybe the only sort of written demand by Brentford was 70 million plus 7. That was what they were after, and that's kind of confirmed on all sides, really. Brentford's position would be that they never changed that price, though. So United will think that the goalpost kept shifting. They, I think, thought that a bid in the region of 65 would get it done. Whether that was the overall package, that clearly that it was their belief. 65 turns out is the kind of guaranteed payment of the then plus 6 and make it a 71 package. But so there was frustration certainly from United over that. Brentford will say, well, we didn't. You got your wrong communication basically. And I think maybe also the first bid was lower, quite a bit lower, and I think that irritated Brentford. So was that a smart move, or was it? Obviously there's balance. You don't want to go in at the bid that you think is going to get accepted. Absolutely, I think, because for Mason Mount, for example, I think there was a kind of a broad agreement that 45 million was about right in that moment, but that I am told was the first offer by United. So it then obviously escalates because Chelsea said no to it. Whereas if they'd gone in maybe lower, could they have got it done for cheaper? I don't know, because it's a
so smart,
a delicate,
it's
a delicate balance. But yeah, so clearly, I mean, they felt that Brentford were unfair on Mbeumo. They felt that they were trying to put him to Spurs or Newcastle, who were kind of intimating that they would bid higher than United. And Brentford would say, well, why would we accept a bid that's lower than what we could get elsewhere? Yeah, obviously there's maybe a conversation to be had around, would he be open to those kind of clubs? But he was closed off. He wanted Man United, and ultimately they've got the deal done. And maybe in time it won't matter because he's here for this season, and 65 plus 6 for the kind of numbers that he was putting up. I think that's sort of fair enough. United would say that if they went in with that bid from the get-go, it wouldn't have been accepted as well. So they kind of felt like they had to go through this process where he then went back into training, made it very clear that he wanted to leave, and that's why he's obviously not yet played on this tour. So, but yeah, he's in the building at least.
It's mad because getting a player sort of, in July, it's not the end of the world. Like
it's quite early, really.
Yeah,
Amorim's happy about it.
Lots of time left in the transfer window, and lots of time left for him to. I know he's not sort of featured yet, but lots of time for him to get some sort of minutes in pre-season. It's just the way it went down is what was.
It's taking a month where it felt like a period certainly nothing was happening. Yeah. United stepped away, really, didn't they? Because they were like, right, we need to just reconsider this. And I think they had the tour day in mind. They had the fact that Mbeumo was going back to training, and then the reality of the situation would become apparent. And then, okay, let's get around the negotiating table. And yeah, I mean that the trip to Iceland was the key factor, where you've got to Jim Ratcliffe, where he likes to go and do some fishing, and Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada went out to see him for a summit, and then that was that few days just before the Leeds game in Stockholm, where they got the deal done for Bryan Mbeumo, and Marcus Rashford's Barcelona deal was agreed as well.
That's how we work now. That's how it's done. Yeah. Go to Iceland, get the rods out, and it's all happy days.
I mean, to be fair, I think they buy a lot of the food for the canteen from Iceland now to save money. So maybe that's where Jim Ratcliffe was pushing his trolley in Iceland. It's like, right, you come here because I don't even send anyone out to buy it. I buy it myself now. It's just a cost-cutting exercise. Disgraceful. Right, thank you, Laurie.
Nice
Honestly, it's been absolutely brilliant. Obviously, having you on, being out here. Loads more coming out as well, and we'll hear from you hopefully on the channel at some point as well soon. Sure. But yeah,
just make sure you check out the Athletics, link in the description. Check out Talk of the Devils on YouTube if you must.
After you've checked out Stretford.
Go and check them out. Always a good watch. Always a pleasure as well. Cheers, Laurie.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much,
Laurie.
guys.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for joining us at home. This has been Inside United with Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic and Talk of the Devils. We'll see you in a bit.